The afternoon sun beat down relentlessly as I stood in my backyard watching pandemonium sweep across our normally peaceful neighborhood of Maple Grove Estates. The piercing wail of the fire alarm ripped through the air, shattering the quiet calm we were used to. Confused families spilled out of their homes, tugging along kids, pets, and anything else they could grab in their scramble to escape. Mrs. Peterson, 2 houses over, stumbled into the street, clutching her cat while still wrapped in her bathrobe. The Johnsons rushed out with their twin toddlers bawling in each arm, and perched right at the edge of my property, arms folded tight and a smug little smile plastered across her lips, stood Karen Weatherb, our self-appointed queen of the HOA. She jabbed a triumphant finger at my Weber grill, where my perfectly seasoned ribs were still gently smoking. "I told you this was a fire hazard," she declared loudly, her voice dripping with satisfaction as she made sure every neighbor within 5 houses heard her. Within minutes, 3 fire trucks barreled into our cul-de-sac, their blaring sirens adding to the mayhem. Firefighters in full turnout gear hopped out, ready to take on whatever blaze was supposedly threatening the community. The fire chief, a stocky guy with steel gray hair at his temples, took in the scene with practiced, skeptical eyes. He looked from the smoking grill to Karen, then back to the grill. "Ma'am," he said slowly as he turned to face her, "did you pull the fire alarm?" Her grin twitched, faltering for half a second before she stiffened her posture. "I smelled smoke and feared for everyone's safety," she proclaimed. Then she swung her arm toward me. "This man is creating a dangerous situation with his illegal barbecue." The chief's expression hardened immediately. He murmured something into his radio, then faced Karen again. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back." The look on her face was absolutely priceless. Her smugness evaporated in an instant, replaced by sheer disbelief as the chief reached for his handcuffs. The entire neighborhood stared in stunned silence as Karen Weatherb, the terror of Maple Grove Estates, was arrested right on my lawn. But let me take you back and explain how this insanity started. It began 3 weeks earlier when my wife, Lisa, and I decided to host a neighborhood barbecue. We had moved into Maple Grove Estates just 6 months before, and thought it was time to make some community connections. Lisa whipped up her famous potato salad, I marinated ribs for 2 full days, and we invited everyone on the street for a relaxed Saturday cookout. The weather couldn't have been better: sunny skies, a gentle breeze, and people started showing up around PM carrying side dishes and lawn chairs. The Patels brought samosas. The new couple from the corner arrived with a veggie tray. Even old Mr. Franklin rolled over in his wheelchair with a jug of his homemade lemonade. Everything was running smoothly, until I spotted her, marching across the lawn with purpose. Karen Weatherb, president of the Maple Grove Estates HOA, looked ready to enforce every rule ever written. Her bleached blonde hair was yanked into a severe bun, and she wore what I'd come to think of as her uniform: crisp khaki capris, a coral polo with the HOA logo on the chest, and those stiff walking shoes that somehow managed to stomp even on soft grass. "Excuse me," she called out before reaching the property line. "What exactly is happening here?" I turned from the grill, spatula in hand, and gave her my friendliest smile. "Hey, Karen, just a neighborhood gathering. Want a burger?" She wrinkled her nose like I'd handed her spoiled trash. "The smell is horrendous. I can detect it from 3 houses down. This violates HOA Code 7.3, Section B, regarding noxious odors and outdoor cooking devices." Lisa appeared beside me, ever the peacemaker. "Karen, we reviewed the HOA guidelines before planning this. Grills are allowed as long as they're 15 feet from any structure, and ours is." Karen's eyes narrowed into slits. "Don't quote regulations at me. I wrote those regulations. And I don't remember approving any gathering permits for this address. The HOA doesn't require permits for private gatherings under 20 people, I replied, keeping my voice calm even as irritation simmered beneath. She whipped out her phone and began snapping pictures of the grill, our guests, the food table. "We'll just see about that. I'm documenting everything. Fire hazards, noise issues, and I'm quite certain you don't have proper food handling permits to feed this many people, Mr. Franklin chuckled from his wheelchair. Karen, it's just neighbors being neighborly. Remember when we did this every summer back in the 90s? She spun on him, face burning red. That was before we had standards, Harold. Before property values needed protection. The conversation had drawn every eye. Guests paused mid-conversation, watching the showdown unfold. I refused to let her ruin the event. Karen, I said evenly, we have a fire extinguisher right here. We're following safety rules, and we even have a burn permit from the fire department. I pulled the laminated permit from my pocket, something I'd learned to keep handy after she once fined me for grass being half an inch too tall. She snatched it, scanned it like she was searching for a loophole, and shoved it back at me. This may be technically legal, but it goes against the spirit of our community values. The smell is infiltrating homes, hurting property values, and creating a nuisance. It's barbecue, Karen, Lisa said softly. Most people like the smell. Most people don't understand the importance of standards, Karen shot back, her voice rising to a near screech. This is how communities decline. First, it's barbecues, then loud music, then property values plummet and chaos takes over. She stomped toward the grill and pointed at the ribs. How do I know this won't catch fire? How do I know you won't burn down the neighborhood? Because I've been grilling for 20 years without an incident, I replied, patience fading fast. And because, as I showed you, we have all the proper safety measures. We'll see about this, she hissed her signature threat. This isn't over, she stormed off, her sensible shoes pounding fury into the grass. Our guests watched her leave before slowly returning to their conversations, though the mood had definitely shifted. Don't let her bother you, Mrs. Patel said kindly. She tried to fine us for keeping our Diwali lights on too long last year. She measured my garden gnome with a ruler, Tom from 2 houses down added. Said it exceeded height regulations by 2 inches. As neighbors traded their Karen stories, I tried to refocus on the grill. The ribs were nearly perfect, and the atmosphere gradually relaxed again. Kids played on the lawn, adults sipped drinks, and the gathering began to feel normal again. Until I heard it, that shrill, piercing scream of the fire alarm. Not from a single home, from the entire clubhouse complex. What's going on? Lisa grabbed my arm as everyone looked around in confusion. Evacuate. Someone shouted. Fire alarm. Everyone out. In seconds, our cheerful barbecue became complete chaos. Parents grabbed their kids, guests abandoned plates, and everyone poured toward the street. I shut off the gas to the grill and followed the crowd, my mind spinning. There wasn't a trace of smoke coming from any of the houses nearby. No burning smell anywhere, just the faint leftover scent of barbecue drifting through the air. As the crowd gathered in the street, neighbors swapping confused glances, I spotted Karen lingering near the edge of the group. That same self-satisfied smirk tugged at her lips. Every few seconds, she cast another triumphant look toward my now abandoned grill. Moments later, the fire trucks rolled in, 3 of them, sirens screeching, lights strobing across the cul-de-sac. Firefighters leaped out, suited up with axes, hoses, and gear, ready for a full-scale emergency. The chief, whom I later learned was Captain Morrison, immediately stepped forward and took charge. Where's the fire? He called out. People looked around helplessly. No one had seen flames or smoke anywhere except from my grill. Alarm was pulled in the clubhouse, a firefighter announced after checking the system panel. Manual pull station activation. Captain Morrison scanned the crowd with knowing eyes, taking in the scene, the confused residents, the harmless barbecue setup, and Karen's barely contained glee. He strode over to the clubhouse, 2 firefighters in tow. I watched them study the alarm, pull, snap photos, and report back through their radios. When they returned, Captain Morrison made a straight line toward Karen. Ma'am, were you inside the clubhouse recently? Well, yes, she answered, the smugness draining from her face. I needed to pick up some HOA paperwork. And did you pull the fire alarm? I smelled smoke, she insisted, crossing her arms defensively. That man's illegal barbecue was creating a hazardous situation. I was protecting the community. The captain glanced at my grill, then back at her. "Ma'am, that's a standard gas grill with proper safety setup. I can see a fire extinguisher right next to it. Did you truly believe there was a fire, or did you activate the alarm to interrupt this gathering?" Karen's complexion shifted through a spectrum of reds. There was smoke. Lots of smoke. It was dangerous. The alarm was triggered at 2:47 p.m., another firefighter reported, holding up a tablet. "Security footage shows you entering the clubhouse at 2:45 and leaving at 2:48. Karen lifted her chin stubbornly. "I was protecting property protecting lives." Captain Morrison's expression hardened. "Ma'am, your fingerprints are all over the alarm pole station. Multiple witnesses observed you threaten to shut down this barbecue minutes before the alarm was activated. You've effectively admitted to pulling it. That's filing a false emergency report." "It wasn't false," she snapped, her voice cracking. "There was smoke. Smoke from a legal barbecue is not a fire emergency," the captain stated firmly. "Triggering an alarm without cause is a criminal act. It misuses emergency services, creates public panic, and could prevent us from responding to an actual emergency somewhere else. What if there had been a real fire across town?" Karen's mouth opened and closed like she was gulping air. "You can't do this. I'm the HOA president. I was doing my job." "Your job does not include filing false alarms," the captain replied. He gestured to one of his firefighters, who stepped forward holding handcuffs. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for violating State Statute 911.45 false emergency reporting and Statute 911.62 interference with fire department operations." The neighborhood froze, watching in stunned silence as Karen was read her rights. Her protests escalated into full-blown desperation. "This is ridiculous. I want my lawyer. You can't arrest me for caring about safety. I'll have your job. Do you even know who I am? I'm the president of Maple Grove Estates HOA." "Yes, ma'am," Captain Morrison replied dryly as she was cuffed. "You've mentioned that. You can explain it to the judge." As they walked her toward the police cruiser, she tried to motion toward me with her restrained hands. "This is his fault. That illegal grill, the smoke. I was protecting everyone." Her shrieking tirade about safety and property values was cut off once the car door slammed shut. For a moment, silence blanketed the cul-de-sac until Mr. Franklin started clapping. Slowly, others joined until half the neighborhood was applauding. Captain Morrison approached me with a sigh. "Sorry about the mess. Mind if I take a quick look at your setup? Just want to file everything properly, of course," I said, leading him to the grill. He checked everything with professional speed burn permit, clearance, extinguisher, and gas shutoff. "You're fully compliant," he confirmed. Then he lowered his voice. "Between you and me, she's called in 3 false alarms this past year. We've been documenting the pattern." As the fire trucks left and neighbors wandered back toward the leftover food, the mood transformed completely. What had started full of tension turned into a strange sort of celebration. People shared their favorite Karen encounters, laughed off the chaos, and somehow, the mess she caused ended up bringing everyone closer. 3 days later, as I was checking my mail, Mrs. Patel rushed toward me with barely contained excitement. "Did you hear? Emergency HOA meeting tonight. They're voting on Karen's position." That evening, the clubhouse overflowed with residents. I'd never seen such a turnout. Karen's vice president, David, soft-spoken and nervous, opened the meeting. "As many of you have heard," he began, "HOA president is facing criminal charges for filing a false emergency report. Penalties could include up to 6 months in jail and fines up to $5,000. The board believes this reflects poorly on the community, and we motion to vote for her immediate removal." The vote was unanimous. Even her usual defenders remained silent. But the real shock came during the public comment session. A man I didn't recognize stood up. "I'm Lieutenant James Crawford from Station 12, he said. "I also live on Elm Street. I was one of the responding officers on Saturday. I'm submitting a formal complaint to the HOA regarding misuse of emergency services and requesting a restraining order preventing Miss Weatherb from making any HOA-related emergency calls without board authorization. Gasps spread across the room. A firefighter lived in our neighborhood, and Karen had dragged his entire station out for a false alarm. 2 weeks later, I was watering my lawn when a worn-out, frazzled-looking Karen hurried past. Her confident march was replaced with a defeated shuffle. She'd been sentenced to 200 hours of community service, $3,000 in fines, and a year of probation. The local paper ran the story on page 3. HOA president arrested for false alarm over neighbor's barbecue. Tom told me she'd been pressured to resign from her job at the real estate office after the story spread online. Someone had filmed her arrest, and the video had gone viral. Memes titled, "Karen gets grilled," and "HOA leader gets smoked" were everywhere. As she disappeared around the corner, I couldn't ignore the irony. She'd been obsessed with property values and maintaining the neighborhood's image. Yet she became the biggest threat to it, exactly the embarrassment she claimed to be protecting us from. The next Saturday, I lit the grill again. This time, half the street showed up without even waiting for an invitation. It turned into a full-blown block party. Lieutenant Crawford brought his firehouse chili, the Patels served tandoori chicken, and Mr. Franklin arrived with an entire cooler of lemonade. Smoke from a dozen grills hung in the air, mingling with laughter and conversation, a true community celebration. Someone mentioned Karen's house had hit the market. Facing legal bills, fines, and public humiliation had forced her to downsize. $3,000 in fines, plus lawyer fees, plus 200 hours scrubbing graffiti. David, our new HOA president, muttered, all because she couldn't handle the smell of barbecue. I flipped a burger and surveyed the cheerful, unified crowd. Karen had tried for years to divide us with her nitpicking rules and control. Ironically, she'd ended up doing the exact opposite. And the last sight anyone had of her was in court, standing in front of the judge as he listed her penalties. $3,000 in fines. 200 hours of community service. Her face collapsed, her shoulders sagged, and she stomped her foot like an angry child before her lawyer dragged her out of the room.